We're talking about Boise State ESports today on the show, and I'm bringing on the director and head coach of the program, Dr. Chris Haskell, and he's going to educate all of us today on the Game Time Guru. So,
what time is it? Game time! Woo!
If you're sick of the mainstream sports outlets, well, so was I. So I started my own show. I'm Shane Larson, and this is the Game Time Guru. It's different than other talk shows. I'm providing a panoramic view on sports so you can see them through a different lens. So buckle up, and let's go. Hey, what's up, everybody? Shane Larson here, also known as the Game Time Guru. I'm excited to have you guys with me today. It's the first time I've been doing a podcast like this where I have a video format for it. So if you're listening to it on Apple Podcasts or whichever podcast app, awesome. If you're watching this on either Facebook or on Instagram or on YouTube, I appreciate you guys tuning in. The reason I decided to try it out this way is because I actually got to have a video recording of this podcast with Dr. Chris Haskell as I went to the Boise State ESports Arena to record this show. So I thought I'd put this all together and try to see what people like. What I would ask you guys to do, though, is make sure if this is like your first time listening to this and you're like, wow, this video is awesome, I'd still ask you to please subscribe on Apple Podcasts or whichever podcast platform and leave me a review. If you guys can go there and leave me a review, a rating of any kind, it would be really, really helpful. And people always ask, like, why do you need a review? Why do you say that in every single one of your shows? Well, guys, when you're a consumer of media and you're scrolling through to find new podcasts to listen to, well, if you have a podcast that has reviews on there, it's just like a product. If you see a product has a lot of reviews, then you're more prone to actually like go to that product and be drawn to that product. So it's the same concept when it comes to media, especially in sports media. When there's a ton of sports podcasts out there, people might not look at one that doesn't have a lot of reviews. So I'm really grateful for all the reviews that I've had so far. And I just ask that if you listen to the show and you like it, please leave me a review. It'd be super helpful. Now, guys, I'm excited to bring this guest onto the show and show you the setup that we had. Like I said, Dr. Chris Haskell allowed my wife and I, Taylor, to come to the arena and do the interview on the broadcast booth with their equipment. Now, if you guys live in the Treasure Valley or you're passing through Boise, Idaho, you guys need to check out this arena. So, you know, it's something that's super special. It's really cool. They have blue turf that's on the stage where the players set up. They've got an amazing broadcast setup, and the program is huge, not just for the players, but for anyone who's trying to get into broadcast and production. Students can get so much on-job training that you can't get anywhere else. So it was a super cool experience for me, super cool for my wife to be there. She's never actually been there when I did an interview, so that was a opportunity for me to be able to showcase my skills and my passion in front of her as well. So I want you guys to buckle up, listen in, and enjoy what Chris Haskell has to say, because this Boise State eSports program is actually really young, but they are blowing up. And it's really exciting to see. So they've got a lot of potential moving forward. So enjoy the show, guys, and let me know what you think. What's going on, everybody? Welcome out to the Game Time Guru podcast. As you guys can see, tonight's a little bit different. We're here in the eSports arena at Boise State University, and it's the first time for me being able to do this in a setting like this, which is extremely professional, very professional setup. And I'm here joined by the director and head coach of the Boise State's eSports program. This is Dr. Chris Haskell. So thanks for joining us, Chris.
You bet. I'm a huge fan of the podcast. This is awesome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So I have a couple questions for you here to get started. Obviously, we're in this crazy, awesome environment here, this awesome arena. And this started just a couple years ago, this eSports program at Boise State. Talk to us about the growth of this program and your part in getting it started, Doc.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so I've been a professor at Boise State for 12 years, and I have I've been doing research in games and game-based learning and things like that, and I was honestly just looking for another great keynote topic that I could investigate. So I thought, after-school programs and game programs and competitive gaming in colleges, and I thought, let me do some research, but I'm an academic, so I don't just research things. I mean, I like interview people, and I'm like filling notebooks full of notes on esports, and it dawned on me that collegiate esports in its infancy was about to get massive. And there are these moments in the development of anything brand new, mobile technology, personal computing, all of these things, streaming, where the people who recognize the growth as it's about to occur have the opportunity to influence what it becomes. And we were in that moment. We didn't have an esports team, but of the 17 varsity programs that existed at the time, we would have been one of the biggest. Utah had just announced their varsity esports program, and we were aware through this research it was about to explode. There are 880 college football programs in the U.S., 14,049 high school programs, and more than 48,000 peewee and junior high programs. If esports was going to follow any of that type of growth curve, Boise State coming in big and saying, we're committed to this, we want to attract the best players in the nation, we want to have the best facilities and the best arena and the best training and the best coaches, then we need to act before everybody else decides to come in. And there were a lot of big schools at the time milling about, including our arch nemesis, Oklahoma. Right, and some of those. But I took that idea forward and so I said, Boise State needs to do this, and you don't understand how huge it's going to be. Let's look at these. And they, instead of saying, thank you very much, we'll turn it over to professionals now, they said, oh, okay, great. You know a lot. You're in charge. And what? I'm like, no, I was telling you a good idea. You know, it was like the scientist in every disaster movie who reports the asteroid and then they end up on a rocket with Bruce Willis. I mean, there's... And here I am.
So, but I guess that's a compliment, because if you look at it now compared to what you're just saying, you're like, hey, they gave you the reins. Yeah. Look at this place. I can't believe what we have here. It's unbelievable. And you mentioned the word varsity program. I want to touch base on this. What does it mean for someone who's a little bit, I guess, ignorant or naive or whatever you want to call it, right? What does a varsity program mean in regards to esports? Like, what does it mean when you say we are a varsity program?
Let's go. You want to go back in time a little bit?
Yeah, let's do
it.
We're
going back to 1869, and that is the birth of college football, right?
Okay.
So you have 3 universities that are granted essentially varsity status from their institutions. This is a game football that kids had been playing on their campuses and their fraternities and their social clubs, and I don't know, it was 1860s. Whatever they did. They were already playing football, but not between schools. So they got permission, varsity status, from their institutions to play as Princeton, as Yale, as Idaho State. I'm totally kidding. It was Rutgers. But as those 3 institutions, they got to wear their color sweaters, and they got to represent the university, and the faculty got involved, and the presidents, and it became a thing. That was 1869. And so varsity status is simply you get to perform in whatever it is you do as the official organization for your university.
Okay.
So we can't have a second football team or a second basketball team that also competes in other things. No, we have one official, and we support it and lead it however we choose to lead it. That's different than club sports, because it takes a student to start and to lead a club sport. And on the varsity side, it's led by faculty and staff. It's led and supported by space at the university, money from the university to make these things happen, including the time of the faculty to pull it off. And they have the ability to grant scholarships and do all these things related to the school that clubs know. So varsity status, long-winded answer, is the university stamp that says, this thing that you're doing, this is us. We support this.
I love that. It's cool to see where it's at. So tell me this then, if you're a student and you're wanting to come in and I guess essentially be part of this esports program, how does one try out?
Well, you can't be a noob, first of all. No, we do tryouts. We do tryouts once a year. We heavily recruit, so a lot of the players, we're very familiar with what they're doing already. Some of them even send us highlight reels, just like you would for football. Basketball and others. We look at their game records. We look at their standing within the games that they play, as far as how they behave within the community, because some can be banned and have those bans be part of the record that we can reach. And we find out who they are in the game, and then we bring them in to play, which we don't have to do physically, right? Although it's much cooler to play behind us here on the blue. But it is, we can have them play from Oregon or Tennessee. We've got a young man from Tennessee we're recruiting actively for the 2021 class. I mean, we start early.
This is crazy. Okay, so you mentioned Tennessee. That was my next question, too, is the recruits so far, since it's a younger program, I mean, I guess younger in the sense of
we're 2 years old. We're 2 years old,
right? So are we seeing a lot of people locally coming in, or is it a mixture of everyone? You mentioned Tennessee, so we're going further out, we're branching out, but what's the recruits looking like?
We built almost exclusively the first 2 years from who we had.
Okay.
And in the process, started doing some recruiting, but it's a university, a big state university, the biggest university in the state of Idaho. It's a battleship, right? And battleships are really powerful, but they don't turn very fast. So it takes a while to spin up scholarships. It takes a while to spin up an arena and space. So we started with who we had, just kids who were excited and wanted to play and were willing to learn. And very quickly, we started then searching for that class of 2020 and 2021, 2022.
I gotcha. Okay. So I guess explain this to us, the different games that you guys play here at Boise State. So I know that when it first started, there was like 4 games or 5. There was a few games that were here. I can't remember. It was like Rocket League. I was reading up on it.
Yep.
Overwatch League, maybe?
League of Legends, right?
Has it expanded since then? And how does that work? Do we have different – do all players play all of the games, or do we have certain players for specific games that go through?
We have folks that not only play only one game, but they play only one role within that game.
Okay.
So we are recruiting support players. We are recruiting mid laners. We are recruiting tank players. That's their specialization, and we want to know what they can do within that role because we have a playbook, and we need linemen. We need wide receivers. We're looking for the people that can, play those roles really well. So, of the 65 varsity student athletes we have currently, only 2 of them have ever crossed over games.
Really?
Yeah.
That's insane. Okay, so
they often play those games, but they don't play those games at the collegiate level.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So you're talking about playbooks. You're talking about role players, and this is where the cross between esports and traditional sports it comes in. And this is why I think it's so interesting. And I wanted to bring you on here is because we were talking before the show. You talked how you used to coach football, even so you've got the traditional sports background as well, and you're mentioning playbooks and stuff like that. People. To the general public who might not fully understand esports, they might think that's crazy to hear like a playbook.
Yeah.
You got plays. So can you explain that for us? Like you got plays, you got strategies.
Right.
How do practices run when it comes to your program?
Well, okay, so it's a really good question because a lot of people think, oh, gamers, you just let them do their thing, right? And, any time you have a highly organized team competition, you have to prepare. You have to know what you're going to do when things don't go the way that you hope.
Right.
You have to have a unified understanding of what we're trying to accomplish and not just play, ISO doo-doo where everybody just slides out of the way and lets the one person, try to take it to the rim. That may work in the playground. That may work when they're just queuing at home. It does not work against a university who can communicate and stop you from doing that thing that you want to do. So it's a lot of move, counter move, move, counter move. So right next to you, hand me that and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Yeah, so this is an example of one of our playbooks. So this is a play card, the kind of card that I would cover my mouth with. That. It's laminated because I think that's coach law. But essentially, we had 9 players preparing to. This was our conference championship play card.
Okay.
We knew who we were going to play, and we knew which personnel grouping. Just like in football, we wanted in different situations. These situations happen to be maps, right? So these are substitutions that we're making based on the different maps that we might play within this map pool. So we practice these groups on these maps, and these maps are, part of our bigger playbook. We know what our plays are going to be, so it's not uncommon if we go, okay, we're going to, on defense of Kings Row, we're going to play goats, arch access, speed mid. And that is just a quick understanding of what it is that we're going to try to accomplish.
Okay.
And where, right? So mid is the middle of the map, right? These are all different call-outs for where different folks can be. And if they give us something we don't expect, our quarterback, essentially, our shot caller's job is to make the switch on the fly and everybody adjust the role that they've got to do. So when you talk about playbooks, the key is understanding what you're supposed to do in certain situations. And what you're supposed to do when you have to change your role and sometimes change your character, and how we mitigate all of those changing things. It was Eisenhower who said, I always find in planning for battle that when it begins, the plan is useless, but planning is indispensable. right? So we plan, and of course it falls apart. It always falls apart. But it's understanding more quickly than your opponent what you need to do to fix it that usually turns into victory against two evenly matched teams.
That is awesome. It reminds me, like, the terminology aspect of it is extremely intriguing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who's not fully educated on the world of esports, but I'm trying to become more educated on it.
Yeah.
Because, like, for me, to the general public, a quarterback will call out a play in football. And it's like, pro left, T right, Z wiggle, 328 H swing on 2. And people are like, what does that mean? But they know every single, they know exactly what it is. Mm-hmm. And it's the same concept for you guys. You practice so much that you know what to do. And then if that breaks down, just like a quarterback, someone gets through the line. Well, all of a sudden his 3-step drop or his 5-step drop's completely off. He's got to take off.
Exactly.
Everyone knows how to adjust. And that's what your practices are for. I think that's insane. And it's so cool to see.
Well, and it's the reason why this makes sense in college. Because, yes, we're trying to defeat other institutions. We're trying to beat other schools. We're trying to, climb in the national rankings. We're trying to win national championships. We're lucky enough to, in just 2 years, to have three different Mountain West Conference titles in the games. The whole Mountain West now plays esports. So we took the conference championships in Overwatch and in Rocket League this year, and in Rocket League last year. So we know that that's the outcome. But the reason that this is a college thing is that some students, not every student, but some students really like the opportunity to try to become the best that they can for their university at something, whether it's football, whether it's graduate students trying to land grants and do really interesting research while they're here. They're trying to do something great at their university. And so this is just an opportunity to build skills that will translate into other things that we haven't even thought of yet. But anytime you put effort into planning and preparation and personal and self-analysis and communication and team building, all those things, they last forever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the Mountain West has every team has an esports program.
Yep.
Now, so do you play in conferences in esports, or do you play other schools outside of it, kind of similar to football? Like, is there an in-conference, out-of-conference schedule? How does that work?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do that is unique, because we have this location here, we can play any games that we want whenever we want. So we have a regular season, which are matches that we make, and then we have essentially tournaments. The Mountain West has tournaments. The different publishers who make and sell these games, they also have their own tournaments, and we jump in those. We're also part of a national organization with over 250 now colleges and universities that have official varsity esports program, climbing toward that 880 number of football programs, right?
Right.
When we started 2 years ago, we were number 18. We were the third FBS school behind Utah, who I mentioned before, which is probably our closest regional rival, and Miami, Ohio.
Okay.
They had official varsity programs as well. And now there are 35, 40 FBS programs of the 119 or however many there are. I don't know that number. It's growing really, really fast, and it's about to explode. With a crazy arms race in the SEC, Big Ten, and Big 12 with varsity programs. It is coming. I spent a week at Mizzou this summer, just kind of consulting on the development of their program, and they're going to be the first, but it's going to get huge over there.
Oh, it's exciting to see the growth of it so far. Like last year here on the show, we did an esports mini-series, and I was able to speak to, I did an episode where I spoke to a fan, just a fan, a general fan, and he went to the Overwatch League finals in Brooklyn, and he told about the whole experience from buying the ticket to what the entire experience is like. One of the coolest things I've ever heard, because I never thought of it like that, but it's grown so much. And then I also spoke to a head coach from Bellevue University, and he talked a little bit about his program and his whole perspective on it, and how their students are to act and stuff. And you were mentioning this before the show, how your players, your students are supposed to act and conduct themselves. And I'm curious, because this comes up, and I watched this documentary actually on esports, and they mentioned something to the effect of, like, as it continues to grow, especially at the collegiate level, they're going to have to abide by the same rules that other athletes do in the sense of testing. And I know that this might be something that we we can or can't talk about, but like Adderall, for instance, it's a topic that comes up. Like, do they get tested for Adderall, caffeine content in a urine sample, stuff like that gets into the deep nitty-gritty stuff? Where are we at right there, and where do you see that going in the near future?
You bet. That's a great question, and all of that is coming. I mean, regulation over students is always a part of intercollegiate athletics, right? I mean, whatever that is, whether it's helping to regulate and influence their academic progress, because it's not just grades, it's actually progress toward degree that makes you eligible. And a lot of people don't know that. They're like, well, if they're flunking all their... No, actually, if they're not taking the right classes, they can be academically ineligible. We follow the NCAA guidelines that our football team, our basketball, volleyball, softball, all of our other varsity sports do. We follow it, and we do it by choice, not because Kurt Apsey or anybody in the athletic department mandates it, because we're an academic department. We're not connected to, other than being Broncos, we're not connected to athletics. But we follow it anyway. We also follow the Bronco code that all of the student athletes are done, because our students are student athletes, and we want them to think about their experience in that same frame. So we follow the same rules. 20 hours of practice a week is the maximum. 24 weeks of contact a year. That's also a policy. That one's much harder because we actually have 2 seasons.
Okay.
So we're very, very careful. The players probably think that I hate their guts at the end of the season, because we get to the end and I'm like, okay, this was our last practice. Have a great summer, bye. And we just, because we're trying to follow all those pieces. But you mentioned about drug testing piece. That is one part that the NCAA heavily finances and essentially provides the financial support for across those. We don't have that incoming.
Okay.
And usually that kind of use and abuse is something that's regulated by a much bigger department than ours. I mean, they've got people specifically on the training staff who have been nationally trained in how to do those things. That's all to say, we're going to do those things. We've not been financially supported to be able to do those things. And if there's ever a question whether a student is fit to play, if they're like their normal selves, they don't play. And that's my decision, right? Because this is collegiate esports, and we're in a campaign of belonging, right? We want these students to be accepted in the same way that the track athletes are accepted. If we do the same things that they do, expect the same things that they do, and we have the same high standards, then it's a lot more likely that they'll start to see this type of competition as something that fits with those other types of competitions. Because, I mean, let's be honest, rowing is an NCAA sport, and this isn't weirder than rowing.
Right.
Right? The hierarchy of weird, playing games is not as easy, or is not as weird as rowing.
I'm quoting that, and I'm taking it into a little snippet for the promotion for this one.
Isn't weirder than rowing.
I love it, man. We might have just gotten some haters on that one if they listen to this.
With apologies to the National Federation of Rowers.
I love it.
Of left-handed rowers.
So one of the things that's unique about this one, Doc, is your program. You mentioned how, like, you guys had to basically, here it is, now you run with it. But you talked to me earlier before we started. Basically, everything's ran by students, and with the exception of, you mentioned like the broadcasting. You mix them with professionals. You have students running some of the mixer boards and stuff, and it's giving people more opportunities outside of just playing the game. It's giving them opportunities to focus on broadcasting, stuff that I wish I might have had an opportunity to have in college, like stuff like this. It's giving them a facility and tools and the right people like yourself that can lead them. Where do you see this going and continuing to grow? Do we want to continue to let the students have these opportunities and have more people to come in here and teach them?
Oh, you bet. I mean, we could not put on the broadcast that we do without student workers, and many of them get scholarship or even work study for that time. No offense to the library, but working replay on an esports broadcast is a way better way to earn their work study than putting away library books.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to throw that out there. Apologies to librarians. Now you've lost most of your librarian listeners.
Good riddance. I'm just kidding.
But yeah, we couldn't do it without them, and they wouldn't have the opportunity to get airtime to build their resume. So we do a competition against Utah State, and we create essentially the byline for that broadcast in a document that we share with our students. They copy and paste all of the activities that they participate in, and they put it right on their resume. So Paul Meyer, recently graduated broadcaster for us, did over 300 hours of esports broadcasts for us in less than 2 years. He got a professional education. It's not quite 10,000 hours, but I mean, it was a professional education that he can now leverage because he can claim every single one of those, because you can click on it in a digital resume and go straight to the VOD, the video of that, and you can watch him do his thing.
It builds a portfolio for these young individuals that, you know, they're coming out of school. That's one of the knocks on college, so to speak, is that they come out without a lot of life experience. Well, this is exactly that. Like you said, it gives them that experience in that portfolio. I think it's phenomenal.
Well, think about it this way. I mean, so if there are 6 players on stage, there are between 10 and 15 other individuals who are supporting and working that event. I mean, you've got me and maybe an analyst backstage, you know, preparing some coaching and adjustments and things like that. On the desk here, you've usually got 3 people. You've got a production assistant who's making sure that the lights and the cameras are working right. You've got 6 or 7 in the control room running all the aspects from switching to camera work to the in-game camera people, which are observers or spectators. You've got the replay operator. You've got the arena lighting and sound operators. You know, and you've got people working social media and making sure that the chat on Twitch is what we would expect of, say, the pavilion. It's not Taco Bell Arena anymore. I can't remember what the new name is, but you get Albertson Stadium, for example, right? Yeah, we've got people who are doing that. We've got people working the door and ushing and, you know, doing those things as well. So it's an opportunity to be given the reins of a big broadcast and to be able to let that build your future a little bit.
Absolutely. I think it's phenomenal. Just sitting here at this desk in this arena is something that's super special to me, so I can't even imagine somebody that's going through school and wants to do this for a living. Like, this gives them an amazing opportunity. Go ahead.
You know, this is the Boise State Game Pants Esports Arena, and this is like nothing anywhere in college. Everybody is trying to build their version of this. And I'll tell you that, you know, directly upstairs, there are a number of theater spaces that could be used in future years to house 300 or 500 to develop a stage in there with the Bodo space down here. This, you know, kind of, you know, we'll call it the coffee house kind of arena, is going to get much bigger in years.
I'm excited to see it. I'm blown away from this. I've seen pictures of it on social media, but actually walking in here and actually sitting here and seeing what you guys put together, it's mind-blowing. Now, part of the cool part about this, and I guess it's just tradition with Boise State, is the blue turf. Can you explain the blue turf over here on the playing field, so to speak?
We thought it was really important that our players also have the opportunity to play on the blue. And so on our elevated stage where our players play, we secured a donation of a 30-year-old piece of original blue turf taken from Bronco Stadium in 1989.
And this is the AstroTurf, correct?
AstroTurf. You do not want to let it contact your skin. It will take most of it off. It is... Imagine playing football or soccer on a Brillo pad, a big blue Brillo pad.
That's a good comparison.
Yeah. So, but it means a lot to them to play on the blue turf, and we are famous for the blue turf. So it adds a layer of, I guess, cool to something that's already pretty cool.
Absolutely. I thought it was pretty sweet when you showed me that over there. Now, Doc, to finish up, I just want to ask you about yourself a little bit. Let's spotlight you and your history with gaming. What got you into gaming to begin with?
So I'm a child of the 80s, and I loved arcade games.
Okay.
I have a collection of vintage arcade games actually at my house, full-sized, like you would see in the pizza place. I have a Pac-Man and a Space Invaders.
Really?
You know, a bunch of them, about 8. And so I've always been interested in games. My doctorate and doctoral work is in game-based learning, and I've always been interested in these types of things. And I play all of the games that we play here, including some of the ones that right now are what we would consider, we talked about the Big Four, but we're also experimenting in some other games with what we call academy teams.
Okay.
Fortnite and Apex Legends and CSGO and some of these other games that are different ratings, but we're seeing if there's a way to build teams around those and what it would be like. And what's the competitive like. But so for me, this is an opportunity to kind of dig in and really figure this thing out. I think fair to point out is that for the huge part of my professional career, just short of 10 years, I was a high school band director.
Really?
And people are like, oh my gosh, from band directing to esports coaching, and I would argue it's almost the same thing without oboes. I am preparing students for a performance. I'm preparing an arena and a broadcast. I'm a way to tell the story of the performance. I'm creating an experience for people who are coming to watch it. But I help them understand their parts. I don't get to play a single one. It's their job. So it's in preparing them to work well together, to listen and to notice and to lead at times and when to follow. I mean, it's a very musical interplay during a match that you have to teach people is really truly how to listen to what's going on and how to essentially speak or play at the right volume, the right intensity to have the outcome that you want. It's a very comfortable comparison to me, and then I don't pull my hair out when there are wrong notes because I couldn't do anything about it.
I love it, man. And what's your favorite game
that we play now, or over
what's
time?
your favorite game that you've ever played in the history? That's 100%. Your favorite.
N64 GoldenEye. Yeah, you had to have the expansion. When they made out that little expansion, pack that boosted the video memory a little bit. Yeah. Perfect Dark was pretty good too, but I mean, nothing beats GoldenEye.
And you're taking me way back. I was what was I in 5th grade? I believe that was when I was playing that. So I remember going to my friend's house doing an all-nighter and playing that game over and over and over again.
You could play it forever. It had the split screen.
Oh, it was so good.
You could play as Jaws or Odd Job. It was awesome.
Super good. So, Doc, where do you see yourself with this program in the next 5 to 10 years? Do you expect, you've grown it so much, do you intend on sticking with it as much as you possibly can? What's the plans for you?
Well, I thought it was going to be this quick mission to the asteroid with Willis, and then we'd be done. But it has turned out to be a great vehicle to teach a lot of things that you don't always get a time to teach at the university. When I was a band director, we would have kids for 4 years involved in a program, and you'd see them every semester, sometimes twice, 3 times a day.
Yeah.
You became a family. As a professor, people would breeze through my classes. I'd get them for 1 semester. You don't really get to enjoy the growth of people unless you have a reason to be together and to do things.
Yeah.
I like this a lot more than I thought I would. It's a lot of work. I mean, the joke is this is the greatest scam ever, right?
Right.
Professor of video games. But it is the hardest work I've ever done. It's just not real work, right?
I feel you.
But for me, I'm enjoying this a lot. Now, hopefully this November, mid to late November, there's a high likelihood that I will hit the 200 win mark as a head coach.
Okay.
And right now I'm leading all active coaches in collegiate esports with wins. That 200 number is special at Boise State University because there are very few people that have achieved it.
Okay.
Bobby Dye got there. Coach Peterson got there. Skip Hall never got there. Apologies, Skip. I love you. I know he's a listener. Someone has to push play for him, but that is a special number to me. So that's my next goal is that I want us as a program to get to that 200 win mark, which should happen this year. But after that, it's we've got to get kids prepared for, and they all happen in the spring for us, the national championship. We want to make the live finals. We've made live finals for one of the games that we've played in Hearthstone. We'd like to make the live finals for the others, and we think that we can. We think we've got the talent. We certainly have the facilities and the fans for it. So those are a couple of the big goals. 5 years, 10 years,
So we'll just check it off. For now, let's focus on what we got going forward.
We'll start there. This is so new; we don't know what it's going to be. But for me, because I I'm a Bronco. I came here in 1990 to go to school as an undergrad. Lived in Chaffee Hall. I'm a Bronco. My wife and I were cheerleaders at Boise State back in the day.
Okay.
I actually proposed in the Buster costume back in the day.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So Boise State is home for us. So to get that 200 mark, would be super special. And one of the coaches I respect the most in Boise State history, Greg Patton, achieved and blew through that by a ridiculous number. That's a special number.
Yeah, it's good to be up there. That would be awesome.
Well,
to be up there.
even just to be able to echo the success that they had and talk about them again, because those are heroes of mine.
Okay.
I've gotten to meet all those guys. Bobby Dye was the head coach when my wife and I cheered, so we got to know he and his coaches really well.
Okay, it brings you back a little bit.
Yeah, it does.
Some good times.
So,
and the last thing I just wanted to ask you, we were talking about it, what you guys have coming up here soon. Like part of being, getting better as a team in any sport for that matter is the competition.
Yes.
And coming up in not too far from now, like you guys are going to start practicing. You've got a cool match coming up. Can you explain that whole situation?
You bet. So Harrisburg University in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania won the Overwatch Collegiate Championships, which was essentially sponsored and broadcast by ESPN. Okay. So that's how big it's getting if ESPN is involved. And I got to go witness that in Houston. Every summer there's like the NCAA, there's a big collegiate esports conference that happens. And they've elected to start putting in a match, essentially a bowl game at that. And we have been invited to play the Harrisburg team in Overwatch in the middle of July. And so we've been dormant for almost 6 weeks, and we're going to spin back up here in a minute to prepare for that. We're taking a really well-known and well-respected co-ed squad to face their squad, which is all men. And so that there's a lot tied into that. Now they're a great team, and their director Chet Smeltz is an amazing colleague, and with no criticism of them at all. But when you have a team like this that is very diverse, and a game of 6 often has as many men as women on the stage. That tends to say a lot about the people involved without having to say a thing, which is pretty cool. And that they're going to be competitive, and that is a match that we can win even against the national champions. That we're gonna go there and hopefully kind of steer a conversation.
Yeah, you're going to compete, and that's one thing I think is extremely interesting about esports. The whole co-ed aspect. That's something you just don't typically. You don't get to see it in other traditional sports at a high level, at least. And so it's cool that you're breaking those barriers a little bit in this sense of allowing that to be something. And
I'll add this too, that a lot of universities have started to add. I mean, over on the wall right here, we pay homage to Maggie Borland, who was our first female team captain. She's the first female team captain in collegiate history. Okay. But she was our first team captain, and she was hounded big time by the media to girls can game. We had to help raise the level of conversation about what it is that she did. Many schools will choose a female player to be on their team so that there's an opportunity for inclusion. I'll point out about the female players on our team is that they are really, really high level players. Okay. Amazing people and even better teammates. We're in a position where we have and attract some of the best players in the nation. And many of those players are female players because they recognize what it is that being part of a team really is here. It's not, hey, you're the token girl, come and play with us and get in the team photo with us so that we look cool. And a lot of universities have done that. Our players are huge and captains on our team. I mean, they're a huge part of what we do because the space is available.
Absolutely.
Right.
Now, Doc, where can we watch Boise State esports? Where can we find you guys and see this? Now you got me all excited about it. And if you can't come to the arena and you want to watch them, where can we watch them?
You come to the arena. It's super cheap. It's $0 to come in and watch. But twitch.tv/Boise State University.
That's it.
Yeah, I don't need to spell it with a 3 or a 1 or anything. I mean, it's just Boise State University.
I love it. We need to be checking this out. So, guys, once again, Shane Larson here, the Game Time Guru.
That's awesome.
This was an awesome opportunity with Dr. Chris Haskell, again, director, head coach of the Boise State esports program. We were able to do this interview here in the esports arena. So, I just want to say thank you for your time tonight.
You bet. This was a lot of fun. Great talking to you.
Thank you so much. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review. It would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.